In this message, I want to talk to you about something that may seem simple on the surface, even ordinary mealtimes, sitting down for dinner with family or friends, passing the bread, sharing a moment around the table. But as you'll soon see, as often much more going on. Beneath the surface, especially when you're dealing with someone who has a narcissistic or psychopathic personality. Let me say this from the start, this message is not meant to diagnose anyone. You can't judge someone's heart just by how they eat or what they do at the table. But what you can do is discern the patterns, the small moments where someone's true nature begins to reveal itself, the little habits, the quiet cruel. 'Tis the strange behaviors that turn something as sacred as a shared meal into a moment of manipulation, discomfort, and emotional exhaustion. If you've ever sat across the table from someone who made you feel nervous, ashamed, or small, this message is going to speak to you. And if you've ever prepared meal with love only to have it criticized, dismissed, or used against you, you'll recognize exactly what I'm talking about, because the dinner table for most of us is a symbol of love. It's where we share, reconnect, and find rest. But for the narcissistic mind, it's a battlefield, a place to dominate, to control, and to drain. That's why today I want to walk with you through 5 strange and spiritually revealing behaviors of narcissistic psychopaths during meals and while eating. These are not just odd habits. These patterns of emotional warfare, small, yet devastating, daily, yet deeply spiritual. They are the moments that tear at your peace and leave you questioning your own worth. Stay with me until the end, because the last behavior may surprise you the most, and it just might confirm that what you've been feeling all along was real. One, they turn the dinner table into a weapon of criticism and control. There is something deeply spiritual and intimate about the act of sharing a meal. In the Christian home, the table is not just a place to eat, it is a place of blessing, of connection, of grace. It is where burdens are lifted, stories are shared, and laughter flows freely. It is in many ways an altar of everyday life. And yet, when a narcissistic or psychopath like spirit enters that sacred space, it does not come to receive, but to dom. For these individuals, the dinner table is not a place of nourishment. It is a platform for subtle warfare, where criticism is their language and control is their goal. They will intentionally withdraw from the preparation of the meal, refusing to help with the shopping, the cooking, or even simple planning, not out of forgetfulness or business, but because their absence serves a purpose. It gives them distance, just enough to keep their hands clean, while positioning themselves to critique whatever you offer. If they didn't participate, they can't be blamed. And if they can't be blamed, they are free to judge, to dismiss, to tear down. And so they sit arms folded, watching as you carry the full burden of hospitality on your shoulders, knowing full well that when the food hits the table, their moment will come. Then it begins. The comments start, small jabs. This isn't the brand. I like how much did this cost? Or you always overdo it. But quickly escalate into a full all devaluation of your effort. Every dish becomes a symbol of your failure. Every missing spice a reflection of your supposed incompetence. You try to explain, you try to keep the peace, but the atmosphere has already shifted. What was meant to be communion has become a courtroom, and you other one on trial. And if you dared to ask them for help, perhaps a quick stop at the store for something important, you'll find they couldn't find it, or forgot, or tried, but it wasn't available anywhere. But you know the truth. They never went, they never looked, because failure was never the accident. It was the plan. Now they have The excuse they were waiting for to say, "This is why I don't trust you with these things," or "I told you you'd mess it up," and once again you are left holding the blame for something they orchestrated through neglect. This is not about cinema or side dishes or missing ingredients. This is about control. This is about creating emotional leverage through domestic sabotage. It's a form of manipulation so quiet, so regular that over time it begins to feel normal. But it is not normal, it is not godly. And it is not love. The Bible warns us against the spirit. Plainly, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Philippians 2:3. But a narcissist does everything out of ambition and conceit. They do not build others up. They wait until your hands full, then tear down what you've made. And perhaps most dangerously, they do it in a way that makes you question yourself. Many who live with this kind of person begin to believe the lies. Maybe I did mess up. Maybe I should have known better. Maybe I'm not good at this. But the truth is, it wasn't your failure that ruined the evening. It was their intention. It wasn't the food that was the issue. It was their desire to shift the emotional weight onto you. They don't hunger for meals, they hunger for dominance, and they have learned that if they withhold effort and increase critique, they can make you feel small even in moments when you're giving your very best. But the Lord sees, He sees what they do in silence. He sees your effort in the kitchen, your late night, planning your prayers whispered while setting the table, and He honors it. Psalm 23:05 says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." God knows that sometimes the enemy isn't outside your home. It's the one sitting across from you, poisoning your peace one comment at a time. But even there, in the face of insult and criticism, He sets a table for you. Not a table of shame, but a table of honor. And that's the table that matters. So if you have found yourself crying over dinner you made with love, standing alone in the kitchen, feeling like nothing is ever enough, I want you to know it is not your fault. You are not the failure. You are not the cause of chaos. You are a vessel of care, of goodness, and of God's gentle spy. It and your effort is seen. The next time someone uses your generosity is an opportunity to belittle you. Remember this: they did not come to eat. They came to feed on your spirit. Their appetite for control does not define you. You were never meant to live under their judgment. You were meant to live under God's grace. And His table, unlike theirs, is full of peace. Do they take the best for themselves and leave you the leftovers? One of the clearest signs that you're sitting across from someone driven by narcissistic or psychopathic tendencies is how they handle the unspoken codes of generosity and honor during mealtime. In most homes, as an unwritten understanding rooted in love, the best is often reserved for the guest, the elder, the spouse, the child, someone else. We naturally offer the bigger slice, the softer piece of bread, the last bit of something sweet. Why? Because the table is a symbol of selflessness. It is where we learn to put others first. But for the narcissist, the table becomes yet another opportunity to reinforce their supremacy. They feel entitled to the best, and not just occasionally, but always. They do not ask if anyone else would like the last piece. They do not hesitate before helping themselves to the finest part of the dish. They don't even look around. They act as if it is theirs by default, as if generosity is weakness and giving up anything good is beneath them. And the leftovers, that's what's left for you. This behavior may appear rude or selfish on the surface, But spiritually, it's much deeper. It's a manifestation of a heart hardened by pride. These individuals see themselves not as equals at the table, but as kings. You exist to serve, they exist to consume. Your ex backed to smile as they take more, eat first, and walk away satisfied, while you silently wonder why your own needs never seem to matter. And if for once someone else is served first or receives the best, if the waiter places the largest portion in front of you instead of them, watch what happens. Their demeanor shifts, their facial expression darkens. They may go quiet, sulk, will begin a subtle performance of self-pity. Wow, I guess I just got unlucky today. They might say, waiting for someone to offer their plate and exchange, and often out of discomfort or guilt. One does, maybe even you end up surrendering what was meant to be yours, not because they asked outright, but because their silent disapproval fills the room like smoke. Seen this enough times to know how the evening will unfold if they don't get what they want. So you, given this is emotional training over time, you are conditioned to believe they deserve more, and you deserve less. You start to feel guilty for wanting the better portion. The nice a cop, the last serving by. This isn't humility. This is spiritual manipulation masquerading as peacekeeping, and it chips away at your identity one meal at a time. But let us remember what Scripture says: do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility value others above yourselves. Philippians 2:03. The narcissist flips this on its head. They expect others to value them above all. They demand honor but give none. They take and take until your hunger becomes invisible, your presence expendable, and your spirit fatigued. Perhaps the most heartbreaking part is how normal this starts to feel. You begin to anticipate being lost. You serve everyone else, watch others take what they want, and then scrape together what remains, not just in food, but in attention, affection, dignity. And the person who keeps taking never once asks, did you eat enough? Are you satisfied? Because the truth is they don't care if you are. In fact, your lack becomes part of their sense of power. Your emptiness validates their foreigners. Your submission confirms their control. But the kingdom of God does not operate like this. Jesus, the Son of God, knelt to wash feet. He broke bread and offered it, saying, this is my body given for you. He did not take the best for himself. He became the best and gave it away. The God we serve does not hold the finest portions. He prepares a table in the presence of our enemies and invites us to sit not as servants of Narcissus, but as honored guests. You were never meant to live in someone else's shadow, always settling for scraps. You are not created to carry the silent burden of being invisible at the table you helped prepare. You are not too much. You are not selfish for wanting to be seen. You are a child of God, and in His house your seat is reserved, your portion is full, and your presence matters too. If you've spent years giving the best away, not out of love, but out of fear. If you've watched someone else consume all the goodness while you sat smiling through bitterness, know this. It's not righteous to let someone steal your peace. It's not godly to silently suffer under someone else's entitlement. God has not called you to a life where your needs are always an afterthought. He sees what they take, and He knows what it costs you, and one day, their hunger for power will leave them emptier than they ever made you feel. But your cup will overflow. They publicly humiliate you over how you eat. There was a unique kind of cruelty that narcissistic and psychopathic individuals wield, and it rarely comes with shouting or open hostility. Instead, it often shows up as a quiet sharp stab in the middle of what should have been a moment of rest and comfort right when you're enjoying a simple bite of food these into. Vigils seem to have an almost supernatural radar for detecting your joy, your peace, your brief moments of contentment, and the moment they see it surface, especially at the dinner table, they begin to strip it away with words that sound casual on the outside, but up poisoned with humiliation on the inside. You might be chewing a little faster than usual after a long day of work, or you may simply be savoring a dish that reminds you of home. But in that moment, when your guard is down, they pounce. Can you do a little quieter? They might ask, not out of kindness, but as a form of exposure. Do you always eat like that? They'll whisper loudly enough for others to hear, adding a quick smirk that turns your appetite into anxiety. You might want to slow down. People are watching. These remarks are not innocent, they are strategic. Their goal is to chip away at your self-position in front of others. What was once a safe shared moment becomes the stage for your embarrassment. And the most insidious part is that they often deliver these lines with a false sense of concern, as if they're helping you improve, as if they're doing you a favor. But make no mistake, these are not corrections, they are calculated blows. These attacks are not random, they are designed to hit a very specific Vic nerve. Narcissistic individuals remember what you've told them in moments of vulnerability. Maybe you once shared years ago that you grew up in a modest home where food was scarce. Maybe you told them you used to get teased for your weight, or that you had to learn to eat quickly because meals didn't last long. They file those memories away not to comfort you, but to weaponize them. And they will pull those arrows from their quiver when you least expect it, when you're smiling, enjoying a meal, or finally feeling free to relax. They might look at your plate and comment, "Wow, you're eating a lot lately, aren't you?" Or they'll say, "You keep complaining about your weight." But look at your second helping. The tone is always the same, amused, condescending, laced with just enough plausibility to make you feel like the problem is you. But it's not about food, it's about control. What they truly despise is the fact that you are experiencing pleasure, peace that they did not provide, satisfaction that has nothing to do with them. And so, in the only way they know how, they strike where they know it will hurt your confidence. Proverbs 18:21 tells us the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. The narcissist uses their tongue to cut, to shame, to create emotional instability. And the damage doesn't stop when the words end. Long after dinner is over, you find yourself wondering if you should have eaten less, spoken less, or simply disappeared. And that's exactly the kind of confusion they desire. Because when you're busy doubting yourself, you're less likely to see the pattern of abuse. This kind of humiliation is especially painful because it hijacks a place that God meant to be sacred. Jesus himself used meals to restore, to fellowship, to heal. He reclined at the table with those who are broken, hungry, unclean by society's standards. But he never used the table to shame them. In fact, it was at dinner that he defended the woman with the alabaster jaw, while everyone else whispered judgment. He looked at her not with disgust, but with dignity, and he called her act beautiful. Contrast that with the narcissist posture. When they see you enjoying something, they don't join you. They dismantle the moment. Their words carry spiritual weight, because they are not just observations, they are lies designed to shape your identity. And if you aren't careful, you begin to agree with them. He starts shrinking at meals. You apologize for how much you serve yourself. You eat quickly and silently to avoid being I noticed you live under a cloud of self-consciousness that was never yours to carry, and this kind of humiliation doesn't just affect your body, it eats away at your soul. But I want to tell you today, you were never too much. Your hunger does not make you shameful. Your appetite does not disqualify you from being treated with honor. God made you to be nourished in body, mind, and spirit. And anyone who uses food or your enjoyment of it as a reason to belittle you is acting not with righteousness, but with cruelty. God did not invite it to his table to be judged by those sitting beside us. He invites us to eat, to rest, to be filled, and to know that we are loved without condition. If someone has made you feel small in the very moments where you have finally breathing freely, hear this truth. The voice of shame is not the voice of God. The voice of accusation is not the voice of your Father. He does not mock his children when they eat. He does not whisper disgust into the sacred act of daily bread. He welcomes you, he dignifies you, he blesses the meal and the hands that receive it. So if you've been humiliated at the table, if someone has taken what should have been a moment of peace and turned it into a stage for shame, bring that memory to the Lord, lay it down, let him speak louder than their whispers, let him heal the places where their words have lingered too long. And remember, you were never meant to be small at your own table, for they sabotage the atmosphere with drama or disruption. Meals are meant to be sacred, a daily rhythm where peace is shared, hearts and nourished, and fellowship is restored. At a well-loved table, the presence of God can be felt in the smallest of ways, in laughter, in listening, in simply being together without fear. But for a narcissistic or psychopathic person, that kind of peace is intolerable. Because peace is something they can't control. If they didn't create it, they feel threatened by it. And so they do what they've always done. When they aren't the center of attention, they sabotage it. Sometimes the sabotage is loud and disruptive. They start arguments over trivial things, bring up past wounds, or make veiled jokes that are really sharp insults in disguise. They'll say something like, "Remember when you messed that up," or "still doing the thing," phrases meant to sting, wrapped in humor. But the intention is to shift the mood, to cloud the lightness in the room with just enough tension that all eyes turn back to them. They enjoy that moment, that shift, because now they've reestablished dominance. Other times the sabotage is quiet. They monopolize conversations, interrupt stories, or speak over others. They flood the room with their opinions until no one else's voice matters. They do not listen to connect, they speak to control. And when someone else begins to shine, to laugh too loudly, or receive too much attention, they quickly steal it back. They change the topic, they withdraw, or emotionally, they make small cutting comments meant to make that person feel self-conscious. It's not always obvious, but it works. The most deceptive version of this is when they appear to be the life of the party. Everyone sees them laughing, entertaining, carrying the room with their charisma. But you notice the subtle digs aimed your way, the body language, the inside jokes that humiliate the way they smiled. Others but speak to you with condescension. And when you try to explain it later, no one sees what you saw. That's by design. They are masters of public charm and private cruelty. Psalm 28:03 says, "Do not drag me away with the wicked, with those who do evil, who speak cordial with their neighbors, but harbor malice in their hearts." This is exactly the spirit that invades peaceful tables, false kindness, hiding deep resentment. And when you try to address the pattern, they flip it. Suddenly you're too sensitive or creating drama. They accuse you of ruining the evening, of being the problem, of misunderstanding their intentions. It's a mind game designed to keep you quiet and uncertain of your own discernment. But make no mistake, if you feel yourself walking on eggshells in a place that should bring you peace, you are being spiritual. He manipulated God, never intended for you to be silenced by someone else's mood. He never called you to preserve peace at the cost of your own identity. If you've spent years shrinking at the table, if you felt your voice dissolve in the presence of someone who weaponizes attention, know this: your perception is not broken. What you're sensing is real, and the God who sees in secret sees you too. He knows how much you've carried.